Caroline Whitfield tore the letter in half and pressed the pieces to the lantern flame, her hands trembling so hard the paper caught crooked. 4 years of buried grief curled into ash on her kitchen table. "He doesn't get to come back," she whispered into the empty cabin, her voice breaking on every word. "Not after what he did to me. Not after what he made me swallow." Outside, her son's laughter cut through the hot summer afternoon, bright and unknowing, and Caroline pressed her fist hard against her mouth so the boy wouldn't hear the sound trying to claw its way out of her. If you're just tuning in, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. Stay with me all the way to the end of this story, and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far our little frontier stories travel across this country of ours. The ashes were still warm when Tommy came running through the back door, all knees and elbows, and that wild blonde hair she could never get to lie flat. Mama, old Pete's hen laid 2 eggs this morning, 2 of them right under the porch. Can I keep one?" Caroline swept the ashes into her palm and closed her fingers around them before she turned. "You can keep both of them, sweet boy. Come here, let me look at you." "I ain't dirty." "I reckon you are." "Mama." She caught him by the back of his shirt and pulled him into her side, and for a second she just held on her chin, pressed to the top of his head. Her eyes shut so tight she could see stars. "Mama, you're squishing me." "Little longer." "Mama." All right." She let him go and made her voice light, the way she'd taught herself to make it light. "You wash up. Now you hear I'm headed into town for flour and thread, and you're coming with me." "I don't want to go to town. Townfolk don't like me." Caroline stopped with her hand on the wash basin. She turned slowly. "Who told you that?" "Mrs. Grady's boy said I ain't got no pay, so I ain't a proper boy. He said his mama said so." "Mrs. Grady's boy needs his mouth washed out with lye soap, and his mama needs a talking to she ain't gonna forget." "Mama don't." "Thomas Whitfield, you listen to me." She knelt down in front of him and took his small face in both her hands. "You are the finest boy in this whole territory, and anybody who says otherwise is a fool who don't know what a fine boy looks like. You hear me?" "Yes, Mama." "You got a father. You had one. He was a good man once before the world got its hands on him." "Where'd he go?" The question hit her like it always did, right under the ribs. She'd been answering it in pieces for 2 years now, ever since the boy got old enough to notice the other children had men in their houses. "He went back east," Caroline said quietly. "Before you were born. He had business there that couldn't wait." "Is he coming back?" "No, baby, he ain't coming back." "Why?" "Because some men don't know what they had till the door shuts behind them, and by then the door's locked. You understand?" "No." She almost laughed. She almost wept. "Someday you will." She made him wash his face twice and his hands 3 times, and she pulled a clean shirt over his head and licked her thumb, and tried to press his hair down flat, and the whole time her own hands would not stop shaking. The ride into town was the longest 3 miles of her life. She told herself the letter meant nothing. A letter from a Philadelphia solicitor, forwarded through the trading post, asking after a Mrs. Caroline Whitfield on behalf of a client whose name had been very carefully left off the page. She'd burned it. That was that. You could not follow ashes across a country. But her hands would not stop shaking. "Mama, the wagon's going slow." "The wagon's going as fast as the mule wants it to go, Tommy." "Mule's lazy. Mule's smart. He knows it's hot." Martha Henley met her at the edge of the mercantile with her basket over her arm and her eyes already full of news. Caroline knew that look. Every woman on the frontier knew that look. "Caroline Whitfield, you hear about the stranger?" "What stranger?" "Lord, girl, where have you been? Rode in yesterday on a black horse. Looked like it cost more than my husband's whole spread. Gentleman, Eastern gentleman, you could smell it on him. Asked old Silas at the livery if he knew a woman by the name of Whitfield come out here 4 years back with a babe in her arms." Caroline kept her face very still. She kept her hands very still on Tommy's shoulders. She felt the blood leave her cheeks, and she willed it back, and she said in a voice that did not belong to her, "Is that right?" Said he had business with her. Would not say what kind. What did Silas tell him? What do you think Silas told him? Silas don't know nothing about nobody, you know how he is. But Ruth Bell was in the store, and you know Ruth'd sell her own mother for a piece of news. She pointed him straight toward the schoolhouse road. Martha. I know, honey, I know. I told her she ought to be ashamed. I told her straight. Where is he now? The stranger, up at Mayfield's. Took a room. Mayfield's. Caroline, sweetheart, is this the one? Is this the boys? Don't, honey. Don't say it out loud, Martha. I swear to God. Martha's hand closed around her wrist, warm and steady, the way it had closed around her wrist the night Tommy was born, the night Caroline had screamed into a rag in the back of the Henleys' wagon, with no husband and no kin and no name to call out. You come to me tonight if you need to come, Martha said. You pick up that boy and you walk over, and I'll put you both in our spare room, and Abel will sit on the porch with his rifle, and God help any man who tries the door. You hear me? I hear you. You hear me, Caroline? I said I hear you. She could not remember what she came into town for. She stood in the middle of Mayfield's mercantile with Tommy's hand in hers, and she stared at a shelf of buttons, and she could not remember whether she'd come for thread or flour or both. Mama, you're hurtin' my hand. I'm sorry, baby. Mama, that man at the counter keeps looking at us. Don't look back at him, Tommy. Why? Because I said so. Is that my paw? She nearly went down on her knees right there between the pickle barrel and the dry goods. No, she said. No, baby. That ain't him. That's just a stranger. He's got eyes like mine. Tommy. He does, Mama. Tommy, we are going home now, right now. You hold my hand, and you do not look back. You understand me? Yes, Mama. She did not buy the thread. She did not buy the flour. She walked out of Mayfield's mercantile with her son's wrist in a grip that would leave a mark, and she did not look back. Not even once. Not even when the bell over the door jangled a second time behind her, and a man's boot hit the wooden sidewalk, and a voice she had not heard in 4 years and 3 months said her name. Caroline. She kept walking. Caroline, please. She kept walking. Caroline Whitfield, for the love of God, stop. She stopped. She stood in the middle of the street with her son clutched against her thigh and every eye in that little frontier town fixed on her back. And she turned around slow, the way a woman turns around when she already knows what she's going to see, and she is only turning to make it real. Jonathan Croft had lost weight. That was the first thing. His coat hung off his shoulders like it belonged to somebody bigger, and there was gray threaded through the dark at his temples that had not been there when she'd last seen him, and his face had a look to it she'd never seen before. A look like a man who had been walking a long time toward something he wasn't sure would still be there when he arrived. Caroline, you do not get to say my name. Please, you do not get to stand on this street and say my name like you have any right to it. I have ridden 1,100 miles. You could have ridden 11,000, and it wouldn't buy you one word out of me. Caroline. Get back on your horse, Mr. Croft. Get on your horse, and you ride back the way you came, and you tell whoever sent you that the woman you're looking for is dead. She died 4 years ago. You killed her yourself. Tommy was pressed against her leg now, both arms wrapped around her thigh. His face turned up toward the stranger with the curious open look children get when they are trying to understand something too big for them. Jonathan Croft's eyes moved down to the boy, and he made a sound. It was not a word. It was the sound a man makes when something inside him gives way that has been holding for a long time, a small broken sound, like the snap of a dry branch, and his hand came up halfway to his mouth and stayed there. Caroline. Don't. Caroline, that's... I said don't. How old is he? None of your business how old he is. Caroline, please, please, how old is the boy? Jonathan. Her voice cracked on his name, and she hated herself for it. Hated the way 4 years of carefully built walls could come down at the sound of one man's breathing, and she grabbed Tommy up into her arms, the way she had not grabbed him up since he was 2 years old, and heavy as a sack of grain. You listen to me, she said, And she was walking now fast back toward the wagon, and he was following her, and the whole town was watching. "You listen to me, Jonathan Croft. You do not come to my house. You do not come to my door. You do not speak to my son. You leave this town tomorrow morning on the first coach headed any direction but here, and you never write another letter, and you never send another man, and you forget you ever knew the name Whitfield. You hear me? He's mine. He is not yours." Caroline, look at him. Look at his face. He's mine. He is mine. He has only ever been mine. You made sure of that the day your father stood in his parlor and told me to get out of his house and never darken his door again. You stood behind him, Jonathan Croft. You stood behind your father, and you did not say one word, and I walked out of that house, carrying your child, and not $1 to my name, and I will die before that boy hears your name in his own house. I didn't know. You what? I didn't know, Caroline, about the child. I did not know. She stopped walking. She stood in the middle of that dusty street with her boy's face pressed into her neck and his small breath on her collarbone, and she turned around one more time. You didn't know. No. You didn't know I was pregnant. My father, your father, he intercepted the letters, all of them. I did not see a single one until 3 months ago. I have been, Caroline. I have been tearing that house apart looking for you. I have been... Get away from me. Caroline. Get away from me, Jonathan, before I do something I will regret in front of this child. Tommy lifted his head off her shoulder. He looked at the man with the shaking hands and the gray at his temples, and he said in the clear, careful voice of a 4-year-old who has been thinking hard about a question all morning. "Mister, is you my pa?" The street went quiet. Caroline felt the earth tilt under her feet. Jonathan Croft dropped to one knee in the dust, right there in the middle of the road in front of the mercantile and the livery, and Ruth Bell's pointing finger and every wagging tongue in a 50-mile radius. A man in an Eastern coat put one knee in the dirt and looked up at a 4-year-old boy, and his voice, when it came, was small and wrecked and entirely unlike any voice Caroline had ever heard come out of him. "I reckon I am, son." "Don't you call him that." "Caroline, don't you ever call him that again?" She carried Tommy to the wagon. She set him on the seat, and she climbed up after him, and she took the reins in hands she could not feel. And she turned the mule toward home, and behind her, Jonathan Croft was still on one knee in the street, and she did not look back, not even once, not even when she heard Martha Henley's voice cutting across the road, saying, "You ought to be ashamed, sir, you ought to be ashamed of yourself coming here, and you stand up out of that dirt, you are making a spectacle." Tommy did not say a word the whole ride home. He held on to the edge of the seat with both small hands, and he watched the road in front of the mule, and once halfway home he said very quietly, "Mama." And she said, "Yes, baby." And he did not say anything else. She put him to bed before the sun went down. She sat on the edge of his little cot, and she brushed his hair off his forehead, and she sang him the song her own mother used to sing, the one about the whippoorwill and the dogwood tree. And his eyes closed, and his breathing slowed, and before he dropped off he said, "Mama, is he stayin'?" "No, baby." "Mama, his eyes is like mine." "I know, baby." "Mama." "Go to sleep, Tommy." She sat on that cot for a long time after he fell asleep. She held his small, warm hand in her own, and she looked at the face of the boy she had built a life around, and she thought about a parlor in Philadelphia, and a man in a fine black coat, and the way Jonathan Croft had stood behind his father and said nothing, and she thought about 1,100 miles of dust and 1,100 miles of horse. She was still sitting there when the knock came at the door. She knew the knock before she rose. She knew it the way a woman knows a footstep she has not heard in years. She rose. She crossed the cabin. She put her hand on the latch, and she did not open it. "Go away." "Caroline, please." "I said go away. I rode 1,100 miles. You can ride 1,100 more." "I have been sick. I have been, Caroline. I am asking you to open this door for 1 hour of your life, and then I will go wherever you tell me to go. Why should I believe one word that comes out of your mouth?" "Because I have nothing left, Caroline. I have nothing left to lie for." She pressed her forehead against the rough wood of the door. She stood like that for a long time. On the other side of the door, a man was weeping. She could hear it. She had only ever heard Jonathan Croft weep once before in her life, in the upstairs hall of his father's house, the night before she was turned out, and he had not opened his mouth to speak for her then, and she had told herself for 4 years that she hated him, that she would hate him until the day she went into the ground. Her hand moved to the latch. 1 hour, she said through the door. Thank you, Caroline. Thank you. 1 hour, Jonathan Croft. And if you wake that boy, I swear to you on my mother's grave, I will put a bullet in you myself. She lifted the latch. She opened the door. Jonathan Croft stood on her porch with his hat in his hands, and his eyes red, and his coat covered in dust. And when he saw her face in the lamplight, he made that sound again, that small broken snap of a sound, and he said, Caroline. Caroline, there is something I have to tell you before we say another word, and I am asking you to hear me out before you throw me off this porch. What? He swallowed. I am dying. Caroline stood in this doorway with her hand still on the latch, and the words hanging in the air between them like smoke, and for a long moment she could not make her mouth form any sound at all. You're what? I'm dying, Caroline. No. The doctors in Philadelphia gave me... No. You do not come to my door after 4 years and say a thing like that. You do not. Caroline. Get off my porch. Caroline, please let me... I said, get off my porch. Jonathan Croft, I said. But her voice broke in the middle of his name, and she put her hand up against the doorframe to hold herself up. And she felt her knees start to go, and she felt his hand come up under her elbow, and she shoved him off her with more strength than she knew she had. Do not touch me. All right. Do not ever touch me. All right, Caroline. All right. He stepped back. He stepped all the way back to the edge of the porch, and he held both his hands up where she could see them, the way a man holds his hands up when he is trying to prove to a frightened animal that he means no harm. And she hated him for knowing how to do that. She hated him for remembering. How long? Caroline. How long, Jonathan? They said 6 months. That was 4 months ago. She laughed. It was the worst sound she had ever made. 2 months. You rode 1,100 miles to tell me you have 2 months. I rode 1,100 miles to meet my son. He is not your son. Caroline. He is not your son. You do not get to have a son. You do not get to ride out here on your fine horse and put your knee in the dirt and ruin a life. I have spent 4 years building out of nothing. You hear me? Nothing. Jonathan? I had nothing. I had the clothes on my back and $6 sewn into the hem of my dress and a belly that was starting to show, and I got on a coach with $6. Do you understand what I am saying to you? Do you understand what it is to be turned out into the street with a child inside you and $6? I understand. You do not understand. I understand now. 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 After 4 years now. She was crying. She had promised herself for 4 years that she would never cry over this man again, and she was crying on her own porch in front of him, and she scrubbed at her face with the heel of her hand, and she hated every tear. Caroline, may I sit down? Just on the step. I will not come inside. I am not asking to come inside. I just need to sit. She looked at him then, really looked. She saw the way his hand was pressed against his side, the way his breath was coming in short, careful pulls, like a man who has learned not to fill his lungs all the way, and she saw how thin his wrists had gotten inside the cuffs of that fine coat. Sit. Thank you. I did not say you could stay. I said you could sit. He lowered himself down onto the top step of her porch like a man twice his age, and he put his hat beside him, and he put his hands flat on his knees, and for a long time he did not say anything at all. Start talking, Jonathan. I don't know where to start. Start with the letters. There were 7. 7. You sent 7 letters. Between the week you left Philadelphia and the month before the boy was born. I counted them. How do you know how many I sent? Because I found them. When? 3 months ago. In the drawer of my father's writing desk, tied with a ribbon. Every one of them opened and read and tied up with a ribbon and put in a drawer, Caroline. He kept them. He read them, and he kept them. She put her hand over her mouth. I read every one. I sat in that study, and I read every one of them twice, and the last one, Caroline, the last one you wrote, you were 8 months along. You said you were living in a boarding house in St. Louis, and the landlady had given you work mending shirts. You said you did not expect anything from me anymore. You just wanted the child to know his father's name one day if the child lived. If you lived, you said if. Jonathan. I read that letter, and I walked out of that house, and I went to a tavern, and I drank until I could not see. And then I went back to that house, and I pulled my father out of his bed at 3 a.m, and I said, What did you do? And he looked at me. Caroline, he looked at me, and he said, I saved you, son. He said, I saved you from a woman who was not our kind. Stop. He said he sent a man out west to find you, to be sure. To be sure of what? To be sure you and the child had not survived. The porch was very quiet. Somewhere in the dark beyond the cabin, a coyote called, and another one answered, and Caroline could hear her own blood in her ears. Say that again? Caroline? Say that again, Jonathan Croft. Look at me and say that again. He sent a man named Elias Reed, to find out whether you had lived through the birth and to find out whether the child had lived, and if both of you had lived to what, Caroline? To what, Jonathan? To make sure the line ended in the west. She sat down. Right there on her own porch, 6 feet from the man who had sired her son, she sat down hard on the boards, and she put her head in her hands, and she did not speak for a long time. He came here. What? Elias Reed. A man came here 4 years ago. Came to this town. Asked after a woman with a baby. Martha's husband ran him off with a shotgun. Abel Henley. You know the name. I know the name because I have spent 3 months tracking Elias Reed across the back half of this country. I found him, Caroline. I found him in a boarding house in Kansas City, and I put a pistol on the table between us and I said, You are going to tell me where she is, or I am going to kill you in this room, and he told me. He told me Abel Henley ran him off a porch with a 12 gauge, and he never came back because my father stopped paying him after the first year when he could not find proof either way. Your father paid a man to come kill my child. Yes. Your father paid a man to come kill me. Yes. And you did not know. I did not know, Caroline. I swear to you, on whatever is left of me, I did not know a single word of any of it until 3 months ago. Where is your father now? He died in February. Good. Jonathan flinched. She did not take it back. Good, she said again. I am glad. I am glad he is dead. I hope he knew before he went. I hope he knew the boy lived. He knew? Good. I took the letters to him, in his bed. He was already half gone. I put the letters in his hands, and I said, You told me she was dead. You told me the child was dead. I have been grieving a woman and a child for 4 years on your word, and they are alive, both of them. They are alive in Missouri. And he looked at me, and he said, Son, some things are kept back for your own good. And I took the letters out of his hands, and I walked out of that room, and I never saw him alive again. What are you doing here, Jonathan? I told you. Tell me again. Tell me the real reason. Because a dying man does not ride 1,100 miles just to say he's dying. He was quiet for a long time. I have a son. Yes. I have a son, and I have 2 months. Maybe. And I would like Caroline, I would like him to know my face. Even a little. Even just enough that when he is a man, he can remember that his father came for him once. Even once. That is all I am asking. That is all. That is not all. It is. That is not all, Jonathan Croft, because there is the matter of the estate, there is the matter of the title, there is the matter of... I am signing it all to him. She stopped. What? I have already signed the papers. My attorney is holding them in Philadelphia. The day I die, everything I own, Every stone of that house, and every acre of that land, and every penny in every account passes to Thomas Whitfield of the Missouri Territory. I have named you his trustee until he comes of age. Jonathan, I was going to do it whether you let me in the house or not. I was going to ride out here and see the boy one time and then ride back and die in a city I hate, and he would have got the letter from the attorney on his 18th birthday and he would have known, that much, that there was a father. You are lying. No, Caroline, I have not lied to you tonight. I will never lie to you again. She did not know what to do with her hands. She folded them. She unfolded them. She pressed them flat against the porch boards on either side of her, and she felt the cool of the wood, and she tried to breathe. Jonathan, his name. What? His name is not Thomas Whitfield. You told me. His name is Thomas Jonathan. He has my surname because I could not give him yours, but his middle name is yours. I gave him yours the day I held him. I was so angry I could hardly breathe, and I gave him yours anyway. Jonathan Croft put his face in his hands. He did not make a sound. His shoulders shook and his hands were over his face, and he made no sound at all, and Caroline sat 6 feet from him on her own porch and watched him come apart, and she did not comfort him, and she did not touch him, and she did not move. Why? He said through his fingers. I do not know. Caroline, I do not know Jonathan. I have asked myself that question 1,000 times. I thought I hated you. I thought I would hate you to my last breath, and I gave my son your name. Caroline, maybe because a boy deserves a father's name. Maybe because I was 22 years old and I still loved you, even when I could not say it out loud. Maybe because I was a fool. I do not know. I am telling you because if you have got 2 months, you ought to know the boy already carries part of you. That is all. He lifted his head. His face was wet. He did not try to hide it. May I see him? He is sleeping. I know. I will not wake him. I will not speak to him. I just want to see him sleeping, one time. Caroline, please, one time. She looked at him for a long time. If you wake that boy, I will not. If you say one word to him, I will not. If he sees you in his room and he wakes afraid, Caroline, I swear. Take your boots off, at the door. He nodded. He stood up slow, pressing his hand against his side again, and she saw the flinch he tried to hide, and she felt something in her chest twist that she did not want to feel. She led him inside. He pulled his boots off at the threshold and set them down quiet as a thief, and she took the lamp, and she walked him to the small curtained corner where Tommy's cot was, and she pulled the curtain back 3 inches. Tommy slept on his side with one small fist curled up under his chin. His hair was pressed flat against the pillow on one side and stuck straight up on the other. His mouth was open. He made a small snoring sound that caught and released, caught and released. Jonathan Croft looked at him. He looked at him for a long time. He did not speak, and he did not reach out, and he did not move, and Caroline held the lamp, and she watched the man she had loved and hated and grieved for 4 years look at his son's face in the yellow light, and she saw him memorize it. That was what he was doing. He was memorizing a face he would carry 2 months. Come away now. Caroline. Come away. You saw him. Come away. He followed her back to the front room. She set the lamp on the table. She did not offer him a chair. You have seen him. Yes. Now you will go. Caroline. Where am I to go? Mayfield's, the boarding house. That is where you came from. Caroline. I rode 30 miles today. The truth is, Caroline, I am not sure I can get back on that horse tonight. That is not my problem. I know. That is not my problem, Jonathan. I know. I will go. I will go as slow as I have to go, but I will go. He picked up his hat. He turned toward the door. He got one hand on the latch. Jonathan? Yes. Sit down. Caroline. Sit down in that chair before you fall down in my doorway, and I have to explain a dead duke to the sheriff in the morning. Sit down. He sat down. He sat down in the chair by the cold fireplace, and he closed his eyes, and he let out a breath that sounded like it had been held for a long time. And Caroline stood in the middle of her own cabin, and she did not know what to do next. I am not forgiving you. I know. I am not saying you can stay. I know. I am saying you can sit in that chair until first light, and then you will ride back to Mayfield's, and we will figure the rest of it out in the morning, when I have slept if I sleep, which I probably will not. Thank you, Caroline. Do not thank me. I will not thank you. Do not say another word to me tonight, Jonathan Croft. I am going to bed, and if you are still here, when I wake up, we will speak. And if you have died in that chair, I will drag your body out into the yard, and I will bury you under the oak tree myself. Do you hear me? I hear you. Good. She went to her room. She closed the door. She sat on the edge of her bed with her hands folded in her lap, and she did not move for a long time, and she did not cry, and she did not sleep. And outside the door, she could hear him breathing, and every breath was a little shorter than the one before, and she thought 2 months, 2 months, 2 months, and she could not make the words stop. She did not remember falling asleep. She woke to the sound of a small voice. Mama, the man is in our chair. She sat up so fast her head swam. The sun was already full in the window. She had slept past dawn for the first time in 4 years. Tommy, Tommy, come here, baby. Mama, the man is in our chair. I know, baby, come here. Tommy came to the edge of her bed in his nightshirt, with his hair sticking up, and he climbed onto the quilt, and he pressed his face into her shoulder. Is he dead, Mama? What? He ain't movin'. Caroline was out of bed before the words were all the way out of his mouth. She crossed the cabin in 3 strides, and she put her hand on Jonathan Croft's neck, and he was warm, and his pulse was there, and his breath was there, and she let out a sound that was half a sob and half a laugh, and she did not know which was worse. He ain't dead, Tommy. He's sleepin'. Why's he sleepin' in our chair? Because he was too tired to ride home last night, baby. Oh. Tommy stood in his nightshirt in the middle of the cabin floor, and he looked at the stranger sleeping in the chair by the fireplace, and he tilted his head the way he did when he was working a thing out in his mind. Mama. Yes, baby. Is he really my pa? Caroline closed her eyes. Yes, baby. Oh. Come here. Come back here, Tommy. Come sit with me. Mama, I ain't afraid of him. I know you ain't. Mama, can I look at him? No, baby, let him sleep. Mama? I'm gonna look at him. Thomas, Jonathan, you come back here right this second. But the boy was already crossing the cabin floor on his small bare feet, and he was already standing 3 feet from the chair, and he was already tilting his head up to look at the face of the man who had given him his middle name. And Caroline stood frozen by the fireplace, and she did not stop him. Jonathan Croft opened his eyes. He opened his eyes and he looked down at the boy in the nightshirt, standing 3 feet from his chair, and the boy looked back up at him, and for a long moment, neither of them said anything. Mister? Yes. Does your side hurt? Jonathan blinked. Yes, he said. Mama's got a salve for that. For when my side hurts when I run too fast. Does she? She makes it from a plant. I don't know what kind. You want some? Tommy? Mama, he's got a sick side. I can tell. Tommy, come here. Mama? Tommy, come here right now. The boy turned and looked at his mother, and his small face was so serious, so much like his father's face, that Caroline felt her throat close. Mama, he's sick. I know, baby. Mama, you always say we help folks when they're sick. Thomas. Mama, you said. Jonathan Croft in the chair made that sound again. The small, broken sound. And he reached out his hand, very slow, and he did not touch the boy. He only held his hand out, palm up, the way a man holds his hand out to a horse he does not want to spook. Son. My name's Tommy. Tommy. What's yours? Jonathan? That's my middle name. I know it is. Mama gave it me. I know she did. Why she give me your name if she don't like you? The cabin was so quiet, Caroline could hear the clock on the mantel. She could hear the wind outside. She could hear her own heart. I don't rightly know, Tommy. Jonathan said. "You'd have to ask your mama." Tommy turned around. "Mama?" "Get dressed, Thomas. Right now. Go." "Mama, why'd you give me his name?" "Thomas Jonathan Whitfield. You go get dressed this very second or so. Help me." The boy went. He ran. His small bare feet slapped against the cabin floor, and the curtain swung behind him, and Caroline stood in the middle of her own front room, with her hands balled into fists, and her face on fire, and Jonathan Croft sat in the chair, and he looked at her with his eyes wet, and he did not say a word. "Do not speak to me." "I will not." "Do not say one word." "I will not, Caroline." "You will eat breakfast because the boy will ask why you did not, and then you will go. You will go back to Mayfield's, and you will write to your attorney, and you will tell him you have seen the boy, and you will begin the journey east before the week is out. Do you understand me, Caroline? Do you understand me, Jonathan? I understand what you are saying. Do not tell me what I am saying. Tell me you will do it." "I cannot tell you that, Caroline." "Why not?" "Because I am not going back east." "What?" "I am not going back, Caroline. I sold the house. I sold the horses. I put the money in a trust for the boy, and I came west with what I had on my back, and I am not going back east to die in a room with wallpaper my father chose. I will die here if you let me, and if you will not let me, I will die in a boarding house in this town, but I am not getting back on a coach. I cannot. I am past it." "Jonathan." "I know. You cannot stay here." "I know. You cannot die in my cabin in front of my son." "I know, Caroline. I know. I am not asking. I am only telling you so you know. I will go to Mayfield's this morning. I will ride back, and I will not come to this door again unless you send for me. I will die in a rented room, and it will be no burden to you or the boy. You have my word." She looked at him. She looked at him for a long time, and then there was a small voice from the curtain. "Mama." "Yes, Tommy." "Mama, he don't have to go, do he?" Caroline turned very slowly. Her son stood in the curtain in his button shirt and his suspenders crooked on one shoulder, and his small face was set and serious, and he was holding something in his hand. A small jar. The jar of salve from her shelf. "Tommy, where'd you get that?" "From the shelf, Mama." "Put it back." "Mama, his side hurts." "Thomas." "Mama, we help folks. You said." She could not speak. Jonathan Croft in the chair lifted his head, and he looked at his son standing in the curtain with a small jar of salve in his small hand, and Caroline saw a tear run down the side of the man's face into his beard, and he did not wipe it away. "Son," he said. "Tommy, your mama and I need to talk. Would you go on out and feed your chickens? Could you do that for me?" "You ain't my boss." Jonathan almost smiled. "You are right about that. I am not." "Mama, is he my boss?" "No, baby." "Then I ain't gotta do what he says?" "Thomas, go feed the hens." "Mama, is he stayin'?" "Thomas." "Mama, is he stayin' in our chair?" Caroline put her hand over her mouth. She looked at the man in the chair, and she looked at the boy in the curtain, and somewhere at the back of her mind she was already beginning to understand that she had already made a decision she had not yet said out loud, and she did not know when she had made it, and she did not know how she was going to live with it. "He is staying," she heard herself say. "One more night. One. And then we will see." Tommy considered this. "Okay," he said, and he set the jar of salve down on the table by the chair, and he walked out the front door in his crooked suspenders to go feed the hens, and he did not look back once. The door closed behind Tommy with that soft wooden thump it always made, and Caroline stood in the middle of her own front room, and she could not feel her feet. "Caroline." "Do not." "Caroline, I did not ask him to." "I know you did not. Do not speak." She crossed to the table. She picked up the small jar of salve her son had set down beside the chair. She held it in her hand, and she looked at it like she had never seen it before in her life. "He is 4 years old." "Yes. He is 4 years old, and he walked across this floor with a jar of salve for a stranger. I am not a stranger to him, Caroline. You are a stranger to him. You have been in his house one night. You are a stranger. He knows. He does not know. Caroline. Look at me. The boy knows. She set the jar down. Her hand was shaking again. She pressed it flat against the table. Jonathan, I need you to hear me. I am listening. If you stay in that chair one more hour, I cannot put you out of it. Do you understand me? If you are still in that chair when Tommy comes back from the hens, he will believe you are staying, and I will not be able to unspeak what I said. Caroline, I need you to get up. I need you to stand up now and put your hat on and ride back to Mayfield's. And I will come into town this afternoon, and we will speak there away from the boy, and we will decide what is to be done. I am asking you. I am asking. I cannot stand up. What? I cannot stand up, Caroline. I tried. I tried twice before he came out in the nightshirt. My legs are not mine this morning. She looked at him. She saw that it was true. His face was the color of old paper. His left hand was pressed flat against his side the way a man presses flat against a bullet wound, and his right hand was gripped white around the arm of the chair, and his forehead was wet. Jonathan. I am not lying, Caroline. I would leave this house on my hands and knees if I could. I cannot. When did you last see a doctor? 3 weeks. 3 weeks. He said I was a fool to leave Philadelphia. You were. Yes. She turned away from him. She walked to the window, and she put her forehead against the cool glass, and she stood there for a long time, and she did not let him see her face. Martha will be by today. Martha? Martha Henley. She comes every other day since Tommy was born. She will be by this afternoon, and she will see you in my chair, and by sundown it will be in every kitchen in this county. I am sorry, Caroline. Do not say that to me again. Caroline, do not ever say to me again that you are sorry. I have heard it enough in one night to last me the rest of my life. Jonathan Croft, do not say it again. The door banged open. Tommy came in with an egg in each small hand and his suspenders now down around his knees. Mama, old Pete laid 3 today. 3. That's fine, baby. Mama, I only got 2 hands. Can you carry 1? Come here. She took the egg out of his small, warm fist. She set it on the table. And then, because she could not stop herself, because the morning had unmade her, she sat down hard on the kitchen bench, and she pulled her son into her lap, and she held on to him. Mama, you're squishing me again. I know, baby. Mama is the man staying for breakfast. Yes. Oh. Tommy considered this. Mama, can I ask him a question? No. Mama, please. Tommy. 1 question, Mama. Jonathan Croft in the chair said, Go on, son. You ain't his boss. Caroline. I am sorry. Ask your question, Tommy, Caroline said, and she closed her eyes. Tommy climbed down from her lap. He walked across the floor in his crooked suspenders, and he stopped 3 feet from the chair, and he tilted his head up, and he asked the question a 4-year-old asks when he has been thinking about a thing all morning. Did you die? Caroline's hand flew to her mouth. Tommy. Mama, I'm asking. Jonathan looked at his son. Did I what, Tommy? Mama said you didn't come because you died. A long time ago, before I was born. Mama said you went back east and you got sick and you died, and that's why I don't got a pa. But you ain't dead. So did you die? The cabin went quiet. Caroline could hear her own breathing. She could hear the clock on the mantel. She could hear the wind coming under the door. Tommy? Mama? Tommy, come here, baby. Mama, he's answering. Thomas Jonathan, come here right now. But the boy did not move. He stood there in his crooked suspenders and he waited for his answer. And Jonathan Croft looked across 3 feet of plank floor at the face of his son. And his own face was something Caroline had never seen a man's face do before. Tommy, Jonathan said, and his voice was quiet. Your mama told you that because I was not there. A man who is not there is the same as a dead man to a boy who needs him. Do you understand? No. You will when you are older. Everybody keeps saying that. I know they do. Are you dying now? Thomas. Mama, is he? Caroline could not answer. She put both her hands over her mouth, and she shook her head no, and she shook her head yes, and she did not know which, and Jonathan Croft looked at his son and he said, I am sick, Tommy. I have been sick a long time. That is the truth. Like a cough. No. Like when Mr. Henley's horse got the colic. Maybe like that, son. You gonna die now? Maybe. Oh, Tommy stood there. He did not cry. He did not run. He looked at his father's face, and he worked something out behind his eyes the way he had worked it out the day his mother had told him that his pa was gone, and he nodded slow once. Mister. Yes. Can I have a hug? Thomas Jonathan. Mama, he's sick. Tommy. Mama, you always say we hug folks when they're sick. Jonathan Croft opened his arms. He opened his arms, and the boy walked into them, 4 short steps across the plank floor, and he climbed up onto his father's lap, and he put his small arms around his father's neck, and Caroline Whitfield stood at her kitchen table, with her fist pressed against her mouth, and she watched a man hold his child for the first time, and she made no sound at all. Jonathan Croft shook. His whole body shook. And the boy patted his back with his small hand, the way his mother had patted his back when he cried, and he said, It's all right, mister. It's all right. Mama's got a salve. Tommy, Caroline whispered. Mama, he's crying. I know, baby. Mama, ain't you gonna come over? She did not know how she crossed the floor. She did not remember making the decision to move. But she was kneeling beside the chair, and her hand was on her son's back. And her other hand, God help her. Her other hand went up to Jonathan Croft's face, and she wiped the tears off his cheek with her thumb, the way she had done it 100 times when she was 21 years old, and he turned his face into her hand and he held on. Caroline, do not speak. Caroline. I said do not speak, Jonathan. I said do not. But she did not take her hand away. The 3 of them stayed like that for she did not know how long. Her son in his father's lap. Her own hand against a face she had promised herself she would never touch again. And outside the chickens made their small, soft sounds, and the mule in the lean-to stamped once and was still, and the morning passed over the cabin and went on. She did not know which of them moved first. She stood up. She took a step back. She wiped her palm on her apron. You will eat. Caroline. You will eat breakfast, and then Tommy will go to the Henleys' place for the day, and you and I will speak. Mama, I don't want to go to the Henleys. Thomas. Mama, I want to stay with him. Thomas. Jonathan Whitfield. You will do as I say. Or so help me. I will take a switch to the back of your legs. Mama. Go. The boy climbed down from his father's lap, slow. He stood on the plank floor, and he looked up at Jonathan and he said, Mister, you gonna be here when I come back? Jonathan looked at Caroline. Yes, she heard herself say. Yes, Tommy, he will be here. Okay. And the boy went to get his boots. She saddled the mule herself. She lifted Tommy onto its back, and she led the mule by the bridle, the half-mile across the south field to the Henleys' fence, and she did not speak to her son, and her son did not speak to her, and at the gate, Martha came down off her porch with flour on her hands, and took one look at Caroline's face and said, Oh, honey. Martha. Oh, honey, no. I need you to keep him. How long? I do not know. Caroline. I do not know, Martha. An hour. A day. I do not know. Martha opened the gate. She lifted Tommy off the mule. She set him on his feet in her yard, and she put her floury hand on the back of his head, and she said, Tommy, baby, you go see Mr. Henley in the barn. He's got a calf he wants to show you. Go on. Okay. The boy went. Martha watched him go, and then she turned to Caroline with her hands on her hips. He is in your house. Yes. Caroline. Martha, do not start. He is in your house, Caroline Whitfield, and I have a thing to say about it. Then say it and be done. He put that boy on you alone. 4 years. 4 years, Caroline. I delivered that boy in my own wagon. I held your hand. I gave you a roof for 6 weeks when your money ran out. And now that man is in your kitchen. Martha, I am not finished. I know you are not. That man is in your kitchen, and I want you to tell me with a straight face that he has got one good reason in this world to be there, because if you cannot tell me one reason, I am going to ride up to your cabin myself, and I am going to take Abel's shotgun and... He is dying. Martha stopped. What? He is dying, Martha. 2 months. Maybe less. Martha put her floury hand over her mouth. Oh, Caroline. Do not, oh, Caroline, me. Oh, honey. Martha, do not. Is it true? Is he truly? He is truly. And he come all the way out here to die in your house. He did not come to die in my house. He came to see the boy. I am the one who let him stay. I am the one who said he could sit in the chair, and then I said he could stay one more night, and now my son has his arms around his neck, and I do not know how I got here, Martha, I do not know. Caroline. I do not know. Martha stepped forward. She put her floury hands on Caroline's shoulders. She looked into her face the way she had looked into her face the night Tommy was born, and she said, You listen to me, girl. I will keep that boy today. I will keep him tonight if you need me to. And you go home and you sit down with that man and you say every single thing you have had to swallow for 4 years. You hear me? You say it, and then you decide what you want. Not what you think you are supposed to want. What you want. You hear. Martha. You hear me, Caroline? I hear you. Go on. She rode the mule back across the south field. The mule went slow, and she did not hurry it. She had lived 4 years inside a wall she built with her own 2 hands, stone by stone, and she was about to take the first stone down, and she did not know whether the whole wall would come down with it, and she did not know whether she wanted it to. Jonathan Croft was no longer in the chair when she came through the door. He was on her bed. Jonathan. I am sorry, Caroline. I could not stay in the chair. I am sorry. I thought I was going to be sick, and the bed was closer than the door. I am sorry. Hush. Caroline, I will move. I will... Hush. Lie still. Caroline. Lie still, Jonathan Croft. You have done enough standing up to last me today. She sat on the edge of the bed. It was her bed. It had been her bed alone for 4 years. She had bought the rope and the straw mattress with her own money, and she had sewn the quilt with her own hands. And the man lying on top of the quilt now was the man who had put her on a coach out of Philadelphia with $6 in the hem of her dress. And she sat on the edge of her bed, and she looked at him, and she did not know what to feel. Jonathan. Yes. Tell me about her. Who? Your wife. He closed his eyes. Caroline. You had a wife, Jonathan. Everyone in Philadelphia knew by the time I got to St. Louis. A cousin of your father's, some girl from a good Boston family. You were married 11 months after I left. I want to know about her. She died. I know she died. In childbirth. The child died also, a boy. He lived 9 hours. Jonathan. I did not love her, Caroline. If that is what you are asking. I did not love her. My father chose her. I let him choose her because by then I did not care what happened to me. I thought you were dead. I thought you were... I know. He named the child after me, after I had refused to be in the room when he was born. He lived 9 hours, and he died in my father's arms, and I went into my study, and I drank for a week, and when I came out my hair had turned. When? 3 years ago this October. Jonathan? 2 sons, Caroline. I have had 2 sons. One I did not know about, and one I could not bear to look at, and one of them lived, and one of them did not, and I have been thinking about that every day of my life for 3 years. Why the one, why not the other? And I do not have an answer. Her hand moved. She did not tell it to move. It covered his hand where it rested on the quilt, and she felt his fingers turn up into hers, and she did not pull away. Jonathan. Yes. When I left Philadelphia. Yes. You stood behind your father in the parlor. Yes. You did not say one word. I know. Why? He opened his eyes. Because I was a coward, Caroline. I have turned that day over in my head every day for 4 years, and there is no answer but that one. I was a coward. I was 26 years old, and I had been raised to fear my father more than God. And he stood in that parlor, and he told you to leave, and I stood behind him, and I did not open my mouth. I have no excuse. I have never had an excuse. I was a coward. Yes. Caroline. Yes, Jonathan, you were. I know. I want you to hear me say it. I want you to hear a woman say it to your face after 4 years. You were a coward. You were a coward when you let your father speak for you, and you were a coward when you did not come down the stairs that night and stop the coach, and you were a coward every day of the 4 years you did not ride out here yourself to find out what had become of the woman you said you loved. Yes. And now you are here. Yes. And you are dying. Yes. And that is a kind of cowardice too, Jonathan Croft, to come to a woman you abandoned, only when you have nothing left to lose. He did not speak. His face went very still, and his hand went slack in hers, and for one terrible second, she thought he had gone, and she squeezed his fingers, and said his name, and his eyes opened. I hear you. I am not finished. No. I am not finished, Jonathan. I have 4 years of not finished, and you will lie on that bed and you will hear me. I am listening. I did love you. I loved you past the point where a woman ought to love a man. I loved you when you would not say my name in your father's parlor. And I loved you on the coach out of Philadelphia. And I loved you in the boarding house in St. Louis when my water broke on a Tuesday morning, and I walked 3 miles to a midwife who would take $1 and a promise. I loved you the first time I held that boy. I loved you when I named him. I loved you every night for 4 years, Jonathan Croft, and I hated myself for it, and I hated you worse, and I will never love a man like that again in my life. Do you hear me? Never. I hear you. I am telling you this, so you know. I know. I am telling you this, because I do not know what I am going to do, and I want you to know before I decide. Caroline. What? I love you. She could not speak. I have loved you every day I have been alive since I was 24 years old, Caroline Whitfield. I loved you the day I let you go. I loved you every day of my marriage to a woman who was not you. I loved you when I was dragging my father out of his bed in the middle of the night, and I loved you on every one of the 1,100 miles between that house and this one, and I will love you for whatever is left of me, 2 months or 2 days, and I am not asking you to say it back. I am not asking for anything, Caroline. I am telling you because I did not tell you in that parlor, and I have had 4 years to regret not telling you in that parlor, and if I die on your mattress without telling you, I will not have learned a single thing. She put her face in her hands. She cried then. She cried the way she had not cried in 4 years. She cried for the 21-year-old girl in the Philadelphia parlor, and for the 22-year-old girl in the St. Louis boarding house, and for the 23-year-old woman who had held a newborn boy and wept because no one in the world but the midwife knew he had been born, and she cried for her son in his crooked suspenders, with a jar of salve in his small fist, and she cried for the man dying on her mattress, who had loved her for 4 years, without knowing whether she was alive. And she cried until she could not cry anymore, and his hand was on her hair the whole time, and she let it stay. Caroline. What? I am going to die. Do not say it. Caroline, I am going to die, and I am asking you a thing. What? Let me be buried here. Jonathan, not in your yard. I am not asking for your yard. There is a small rise of ground by the creek. I rode past it yesterday with the cottonwood tree. Let me be buried there. Let the boy know where to come when he wants to come. That is all I am asking, Caroline. That is all I am asking of you in this world. Do not put me on a wagon back east. Do not send me back to that house. Let me be buried under the cottonwood, please. She could not speak. She nodded, and she could not speak, and his hand on her hair tightened once, and then went soft, and she heard his breath go out long and shaky, and she sat on the edge of her bed, with her hands in his hair and his hand in hers, and she did not know when the afternoon light had changed, and she did not know when the hoofbeats came up the track, and she did not know anything until she heard the knock on her door. "Caroline," Martha's voice. Caroline stood up. Her legs did not want to hold her. She crossed the cabin, and she opened the door, and Martha Henley was standing on the porch with Tommy on her hip, and her face was white. "Martha." Caroline. "What?" "There is a man in town." "What man?" "Eastern, same as him. Come in on the afternoon coach, asking for Jonathan Croft by name, asking for the wife of Jonathan Croft by name." "The wife?" "Caroline, he said wife." Martha. "He is at Mayfield's now. He has papers, Caroline. A whole case of papers. He told Silas he has ridden the last 3 weeks to deliver them, and he is not leaving town until he has put them in the hand of the Duchess of Moreland herself. And that is the word he used, Caroline. That is the word, and Silas sent his boy out on the north road to fetch you. And I rode the south to get here first, and Caroline—" Martha. "Caroline, what is going on?" Caroline Whitfield stood in her own doorway with her son on her neighbor's hip, and a dying man on her bed, and a stranger in town with a case of papers and a name she had never owned, and she put her hand flat against the doorframe to keep herself upright. Behind her from the bed, Jonathan Croft's voice came low and tired and certain. "Caroline." "I know who that is." Caroline turned slow in the doorway. Her hand was still on the frame. Martha had Tommy on her hip, and Tommy was watching his mother's face the way a child watches a storm. "Who, Jonathan?" Caroline closed the door. "Come here." "Who?" "His name is Ambrose Hale. He is my attorney. He was not supposed to come. I told him not to come." Martha stepped up onto the porch. "Caroline, honey, do you want me to take the boy back?" "Yes." "No." "Martha, wait." Caroline. "Wait, please. Just wait." She crossed the cabin to the bed. Jonathan was trying to sit up. He had one hand braced against the mattress, and he was pushing, and his face had gone the color of ash, and she pressed him back down with both hands on his shoulders. "Lie down." "Caroline, I have to—" "You have to lie down, Jonathan. Do not stand up in this cabin again today. Tell me what the man wants." "He has the papers for the boy, the trust, the transfer of the estate. He was not supposed to ride out. He was supposed to wait until after. I wrote him from Kansas City. I told him to wait." "Why did he not wait?" "Because I am worth a great deal of money, Caroline. Because there are men in Philadelphia who would very much like to know whether there is an heir, and whether the heir is legitimate, and whether the woman who is guardian of the heir is of sound character and sound mind. And Ambrose Hale is a careful man who does not trust a death to go smoothly when there is that much money in it." "Jonathan." "Caroline. He came because he was afraid somebody else would come first." She sat down on the edge of the bed. Her knees had stopped working again. "Somebody else?" "My cousin." "Your cousin?" "Edmund Croft, my father's sister's boy. He was next in line before the boy. He believed he was next in line before the boy. And Ambrose will have written him the day I sold the house because Ambrose writes everybody. And Edmund will have gotten on a coach the same week I did. Jonathan, he is coming, Caroline. If he is not in town already, he will be in town by the week. And he is not coming to meet my son. He is coming to make sure there is not one." The cabin was very quiet. Martha stood in the doorway with Tommy on her hip and her mouth a tight line, and Tommy had both his small fists wound into the collar of her dress, and he was looking at his father on the bed with eyes that were too old for 4 years. "Mama." "Not now, Tommy. Mama is the Mr. Dyin' now. Not now, baby." "Mama." "Thomas." Jonathan turned his head on the pillow. "Son?" "Yes, mister." "Your mama and I need to talk. Important talk. Will you go with Miss Martha a little while more? Just a little. Will you do that for me?" "Okay." "Thank you, Tommy." "You still gonna be here when I come back?" "Yes." "You promise?" Jonathan Croft, flat on the bed, eyes half shut, lied to his son for the first and last time. "I promise." Tommy nodded. He said all right. He put his small arms around Martha's neck, and he pressed his face into her shoulder, and Martha caught Carolyn's eye over the boy's head, and she mouthed one word. "Sheriff." Caroline shook her head. Martha mouthed it again. Sheriff Caroline. Caroline shook her head a second time, and Martha pressed her mouth shut, and she carried the boy out the door. The door closed. Caroline put her head in her hands. Jonathan? Caroline. You did not tell me about the cousin. No. You did not tell me there was a man alive who would want my son dead. I did not know how to tell you. You did not know how. Caroline. You did not know how Jonathan Croft. You knew how to ride 1,100 miles. You knew how to sit in my chair and eat my bread. You did not know how to say, by the way, the boy has an enemy coming. I thought I would get here first. I thought I would see him and sign the last papers, and be gone before Edmund ever set foot west of the Mississippi. I did not know I was going to be this sick this fast. I swear to you, Caroline. Stop swearing to me. All right. Every time you swear to me, I have to decide whether to believe you, and I am tired, Jonathan. I am tired. All right. She stood up. She walked to the window. She pressed her palms flat against the sill, and she closed her eyes, and she made herself think. Ambrose Hale. Yes. He has the papers. Yes. He has the papers that make Tommy your heir. Yes. Signed. Witnessed. Filed in Philadelphia. He has duplicates with him to file in St. Louis. He has come to put them in my hand. He has come to put them in your hand because he will not put them in any hand but yours or mine. And he will not put them in mine unless I can sign in front of 2 witnesses that I am of sound mind. And he will want to see the boy Caroline. He will want to see him with his own eyes. He will want to swear on a Bible that he has laid eyes on Thomas Jonathan Whitfield and that the boy is alive and that the boy is mine. Jonathan. He is not an enemy, Caroline. Ambrose is not. He is a cold man, and he is a careful man, but he is my man. It is Edmund who is the enemy. Where is Edmund now? I do not know. If I had to guess, a week behind me, maybe less. He knew where I was going. He will have followed. She turned around. She was shaking, and she did not try to hide it. Then we signed today. Caroline. We signed today, Jonathan. You will not be strong enough tomorrow. You may not be strong enough tonight. Martha will ride for the doctor. I will send the Henley boy into town with a note for this Ambrose Hale, and he will come out to this cabin before sundown, and you will sign in front of him and Martha and the doctor, and it will be done. And my son will be your son on paper and in law, and no cousin of yours will take $1 of it off his head. Do you hear me? Caroline. Do you hear me, Jonathan? I hear you, but Caroline. What? There is one thing, one more thing, and I was going to ask you tomorrow because I did not want to ask it on the first day, but Ambrose is here, and the cousin is coming, and I cannot wait. Say it. There is a surer way. What way? Marry me. She stared at him. What did you say? Marry me, Caroline, today. Ambrose has the license from Pennsylvania, and the forms for a territorial marriage. He will have them in the case. He prepared both. He knew I might ask. I told him I would not ask, but he prepared them. Jonathan, if you are my wife, there is no cousin. There is no contest. There is no question of whether the boy is legitimate. There is no question of whether you are the rightful guardian. You are my widow. The boy is my son. It is finished. Edmund can ride clear to the Pacific, and he will not find one word of the estate he can touch. Caroline, marry me. You cannot be asking me this. I am asking. Jonathan, you have been in my house one night. I know. You have been in my life 4 years and a day, and the day was last night. I know, Caroline. You are asking me to marry you on your deathbed so your cousin cannot have my son's money. Yes? And for no other reason? No. Then what? Because I want to die your husband. Because I want your name beside mine in the book before I go. Because I walked out of a parlor 4 years ago without ever standing up and saying you were my wife, and I would like 1 hour of my life where I can say it. I would like 1 hour. That is the other reason, Caroline. That is the one I was not going to say because it is selfish, and the boy's inheritance is not selfish, and I wanted to give you the one that was not selfish. She could not breathe. She sat down on the edge of the bed again. Her hand went into his, and his fingers closed around hers. Jonathan. I know it is too much. It is too much. I know. It is too much, Jonathan. All right. Do not say all right. What do you want me to say, Caroline? I do not know. She sat there a long time. Her thumb moved on the back of his hand, and she watched it move, and she did not know she was going to do it until she had already done it, and his hand turned in hers, and he pressed her knuckles to his mouth, and the stubble on his jaw was rough against her skin, and she closed her eyes. Jonathan. Yes. If I say yes. Yes, Caroline. If I say yes, it is for the boy. Only for the boy. Do you understand? I understand. I am not saying it because I forgive you. I know. I am not saying it because I love you. I am not saying it because any of what you said is enough. I know, Caroline. Do not thank me. I am not going to thank you. Say it. Say what? Say what you said a minute ago. About why you want it. He opened his eyes. He looked at her. His face was gray, and his lips were dry, and there was a tremble in his jaw he could not hide, and he said, I want to die your husband, Caroline Whitfield. I want my name beside yours in the book. I want 1 hour where I can say you are my wife. All right. All right. All right, Jonathan. Send for the attorney. She did not cry. She did not let herself cry. She stood up, and she crossed to the kitchen, and she tore a scrap of paper from the back of her account book, and she wrote 4 lines in pencil in a hand that would not stay steady. And she folded the paper, and she went out to the yard, and she whistled for the Henley boy, who was already halfway up the track on his pony waiting for her, and she put the paper in his hand. Eli. Yes, ma'am. You take this to Mayfield's. You give it to the Eastern gentleman with the case. You do not give it to anyone else. You do not read it. You ride back here behind him, and you do not let him out of your sight. And when you get back to this cabin, you go straight to your mother, and you tell her to send for Doc Prentice and the preacher. Preacher first, doctor second. Do you hear me? Yes, ma'am. Preacher first, doctor second. Go. The boy went. She stood in the yard and watched the dust come up under his pony's heels, and she put her hands flat against her apron, and she breathed. Martha came around the side of the cabin with Tommy riding on her hip. Caroline? Martha. Caroline. I could not make him stay at my place. He would not stay. He kept saying the mister, and I could not get him to eat, and I thought if he sat with you a minute, he might settle. Give him to me. She took her son in her arms. He was heavy. He was getting heavy. He pressed his face into her neck and he said, Mama. Yes, baby. Mama, I heard you. What? In the cabin. When I was with Miss Martha. I heard you out the window. Tommy. You sendin' for the preacher. Tommy. Mama, are you gonna marry the mister? Caroline closed her eyes. Yes, baby. Today. Yes. Because he's dying. Yes. Oh. He was quiet a long moment. His small hand patted the back of her neck once, twice the way she had patted his back 1,000 times in the dark. Mama. Yes, Tommy. Then he's my pa. Yes, baby. For real. Yes. For forever. Yes. Okay. She carried him back into the cabin. Jonathan was still on the bed. His eyes were closed, and for a second she thought she had lost him already, but his chest rose shallow and fell and rose again. Jonathan! I am here. The boy wants to sit with you. His eyes opened. Bring him. She set Tommy down on the bed beside his father. The boy crawled up onto the quilt on his knees and his small hands, and he sat down cross-legged by Jonathan's hip, and he put his small hand on the back of his father's hand, where it lay on the blanket. Mister? Tommy. I can call you Pa now. Jonathan could not speak. Mama said. Tommy, Caroline whispered. Mama said. Jonathan Croft turned his face into the pillow. His shoulders shook. Tommy patted his hand the way he had patted it that morning. It's all right, Pa. It's all right. Mama's got a salve. Caroline stood in the middle of her cabin with her hand over her mouth, and she thought she had not known a heart could hold this much at one time. She heard the hoofbeats before she saw them. 2 horses. She wiped her face with her apron, and she went to the door. Ambrose Hale came off his horse like a man who did not know how to come off a horse. He was narrow and pale, and his coat was ruined with dust, and he had a leather case chained to his wrist with a short length of chain, and Caroline had never in her life seen a thing like that outside of a book. Mrs. Croft. Mr. Hale. Forgive me, madam. I meant no presumption. I do not know what I am to call you. Caroline. Until the papers are signed, then what the papers say. Caroline, thank you. May I see him? He is weak. I know. He is weaker than he was this morning. I know, Caroline. That is why I came. I am very sorry. She let him in. He went to the bed. He set his case on the floor beside the bed, and he knelt down on the plank floor in his dusty coat, like a man in a church, and he took Jonathan's hand in both of his, and he held it, and he did not speak for a long minute. And when he did speak, his voice was not the voice of an attorney. Your Grace. Ambrose, don't. Forgive me. Ambrose, I told you not to come. I know. I am very sorry. I could not stay in Philadelphia. Edmund has left. He left 4 days after you did. He is west of the Ohio by now. I could not sit in that office and wait. Where is he? I do not know, sir. I have had a man behind him. The last I heard he was in St. Louis 2 weeks ago. He was asking for a Mrs. Whitfield. He had hired a tracker. He will be here inside the week, sir. Inside the week. Jonathan closed his eyes. Then we sign tonight. Tonight, sir. And we marry tonight. Ambrose Hale turned his head. He looked at Caroline. He stood up slow, and he set his dusty hat on the table beside the bed, and he said, Madam, is that the case? It is the case. Madam, I must tell you as your future husband's attorney, and as your own representative in this matter, that you are not required to do this. The trust as written is lawful and binding. Your son's inheritance does not depend on a marriage. I know. You are aware, madam, that a marriage may be contested in a way that a trust cannot. Tell me how. An interested party, Mrs. Whitfield, may bring suit that the marriage was entered into under duress for fraudulent purposes or without capacity of mind on the part of the groom. Edmund Croft will bring such a suit. He will bring it the day he learns of it. He will have 3 physicians and 4 solicitors and a packet of testimonies, and he will argue to a court in Philadelphia that his Grace was not of sound mind when he married an American shopgirl on his deathbed. Caroline's hand went white on the back of the chair. Shopgirl. Those will be his words, madam, not mine. Mr. Hale. Yes, madam. Can we beat him? Madam. Can we beat him? In the court. Can we win? Ambrose Hale was quiet. If His Grace signs in front of myself a doctor of medicine willing to testify to his competence, an ordained minister, and at least 2 independent witnesses unrelated to the parties. If the signing is recorded in the minister's register and the territorial civil register on the same day. If the boy is brought before all parties and formally acknowledged. If the marriage is consummated insofar as... He stopped. He did not finish the sentence. He did not look at Caroline. Insofar as the parties sleep under the same roof as man and wife for however many nights remain. Then, madam, yes, we can beat him. How long will the doctor be? I do not know. I sent for him. Your neighbor's boy has ridden for him. He should be within the hour. And the minister? Also sent for madam. Then we have an hour. Yes. Mr. Hale. Madam, you will sit at my table. You will eat bread and drink water. You will take that chain off your wrist and set the case on the table, and you will open it, and you will lay out every paper in the order. I must see them, and you will explain each one to me in a voice a 4-year-old could understand, because I am not signing one word until I understand every word. Do you hear me? Yes, madam. And Mr. Hale. Madam, if you ever call me a shopgirl, I will put you out of this house on your ear. Yes, madam. Sit down. He sat. She stood by the bed a moment longer. She put her hand on Jonathan's forehead. It was warm, warmer than it had been an hour before. "Jonathan, I am here. The doctor is coming. The preacher is coming. We will sign and we will be done." Caroline. "What?" "There is one more thing. Jonathan, if you tell me one more thing, I swear to God." Caroline. "What?" "The cousin, Edmund. If he gets here before I am gone. Then he gets here. Then he sees you with a ring on your wife's finger and a pen in your hand. Caroline, if he gets here after." "After what?" "After I am gone. Before the papers are filed. Before the marriage is entered in the registers in Philadelphia. There will be a window, Caroline. 10 days. Maybe 12. Between when I die here and when Ambrose can have every paper filed in Pennsylvania. In that window, you and the boy are in this cabin with nobody but Abel Henley's shotgun between you and a man who has ridden 1,000 miles to make sure there is no heir." She stood very still. "Jonathan." "Yes, you are telling me my son is in danger. I am telling you the boy is safe as long as I am alive, and safe as long as the papers are filed. In between, Caroline, I do not know. Then you will not die in between. Caroline. You will not die, Jonathan Croft. You will not die for 3 weeks. You will hold on 3 weeks. You owe me that. You owe the boy that. Do you hear me?" "I hear you." "Swear it." Caroline. "Swear it to me, Jonathan. Swear it on the boy. Swear it on his head. 3 weeks." He lifted her hand to his mouth. He pressed his lips against her knuckles. He did not take his eyes off her face. "I swear it." There were hoofbeats in the yard. Not one horse, not 2, 3. Ambrose Hale stood up at the table so fast his chair went over. He crossed to the window and he looked out, and his face went the color of his dusty coat. "Madam." "What?" "Madam, the third rider. I have never seen the third rider in my life, but I know who he is." "Who?" "Caroline, the cousin is here." Ambrose Hale stepped back from the window like a man who had seen a snake. "3 riders, madam. The first is the doctor. I know his horse. It is the same horse the stableman saddled for him in town. The second is the preacher. I saw him at Mayfield's this morning. The third." "The third." "The third is not from this county." Caroline crossed to the window. Her hand was shaking. She looked out. "That man in the gray coat." "Yes." "With the carbine across the saddle." "Yes, madam." "That is your cousin." From the bed, Jonathan's voice came quiet. "Let me see." "Jonathan, lie still." "Caroline, let me see him. I will know." She went to the bed. She slid her arm under his shoulders, and she half lifted him. He turned his head toward the window, and he looked out through the wavy glass, and his whole body went slack against her arm. "Yes." "Jonathan?" "That is Edmund." She laid him back down. "Ambrose?" "Yes, madam." "How many minutes do we have?" "Madam." "How many minutes until that man is on my porch?" 2, perhaps 3. The doctor will come first and will ride through the gate and will come on faster. The preacher will follow him. The cousin will hang back and he will let the others come ahead because he has not decided yet what he will say. "Good." "Good, madam." "Good because 3 minutes is enough. Tommy." "Yes, Mama." "Tommy, listen to Mama. You are going to go out the back. You are going to run across the south field to Miss Martha. You are not going to look back. You are not going to stop. Do you hear me, baby?" "Mama." "Thomas Jonathan, do you hear me?" "Mama, the mister said he'd be here when I come back." "He will be, baby." "Mama, you promise." Jonathan turned his head on the pillow. "Tommy, son, look at me." "Yes, Pa. You do what your mama says. You run fast. You stay with Miss Martha till your mama comes for you, you hear? Not till I come. Till your mama comes. You mind me now." "Yes, Pa." "Go on, son." The boy climbed down off the bed. He put his small hand on his father's hand one time, and then he ran to the back of the cabin, and Caroline opened the door to the lean-to, and she put her hand on the back of her son's head, and she said, "Go, baby, go now." He went. She closed the door. She pressed her forehead against the wood a second. She breathed one breath. She turned around. "Ambrose." "Yes, madam." "Open the case. Every paper. The table. Now." "Yes, madam." "Jonathan." "Yes. You are going to sit up. I am going to put a pillow behind your back, and you are going to sit up, and you are going to look alive for the next hour, Jonathan Croft. Because every man who walks through that door is going to be looking for a reason to say, 'You were not of sound mind, and I will not give them one.' Do you hear me?" "I hear you." She pulled him up. She stuffed a quilt behind his shoulders. She smoothed his hair back from his forehead with both hands, and her hands were shaking, and she did not hide it. "Jonathan." "Caroline." "Do not die in the next hour." "I will not." "Swear it again." "I swear it." The first horse came into the yard. Caroline went to the door. She opened it before the knock came. Doc Prentice was a short man with a gray beard and a leather bag that had been his father's. He came up onto the porch with his hat in his hand. "Ms. Whitfield." "Doctor?" "Young Eli said it was urgent." "It is." "Got another rider right behind me. Preacher Coombs. Got a third hanging back I don't know. You expectin' him?" "No." "You want me to tell him to wait in the yard?" "Yes." "All right." All. The doctor came inside. He saw the bed. He saw the man on the bed. He did not break stride. He set his bag on the floor by the bed, and he rolled up his sleeves and he said, "Sir, your name?" "Jonathan Edward Croft." "Where are you?" "Missouri Territory, Whitfield Cabin, 3 miles north of town." "What year?" 1819. "Who is the woman standing beside me?" "Caroline Whitfield, the mother of my son." "And that boy's name?" "Thomas Jonathan Whitfield." "What are you here to do?" "Marry his mother. Sign the papers that make the boy my heir. Die in this house." Doc Prentice turned. He looked at Caroline. He looked at Ambrose Hale, laying papers out on her kitchen table with hands that had gone still and steady. He looked back at Jonathan. "Sir, how long you been sick?" 4 months. "Pain today?" "Yes." "Scale of 1 to 10. 7. You have sound mind?" "Yes." "You know what you are signing?" "Yes." "You know what you are saying when you say marry?" "Yes." "You being made to do any of this?" "No." "You want to be doing it?" "I want it more than I have wanted anything in 4 years." The doctor nodded once. He took a small book and a pencil from his inside pocket. He wrote 4 lines in the book. He turned to Caroline. "Ms. Whitfield." "Doctor, I will testify to any court in this country that this man is of sound mind on this day at this hour. I will write it, and I will sign it, and I will swear to it on a Bible. You hear me?" "I hear you." "Who is the rider in the yard?" "His cousin from Philadelphia." "The one he don't want?" "Yes." "All right." The preacher was at the door before she could answer. Reverend Coombs was a tall, thin man with a face like weathered wood, and he came in with his Bible under his arm, and he said, "Ms. Whitfield, I come as fast as I could. Young Eli near rode that pony into the ground." "Preacher?" "Eli said marriage." "Yes." "Tonight." "Now." "Now, Ms. Whitfield." "Now, preacher." "Who is the groom?" "The man on that bed." The preacher crossed to the bed. He did not sit. He stood at the foot of the bed with his Bible, and he looked down at Jonathan, and his face did not change. "Sir." "Reverend, you a Christian man." "I was raised one." "You a Christian man now?" "I am trying to be." "You in a state to stand before God?" "I am in no state, Reverend. I am a sinner, and I am a coward, and I have 4 months left, and I am trying to make it right with 1 woman and 1 boy before I go. That is the only state I am in." The preacher was quiet a moment. "That will do." "Reverend." "Son." Do not preach at me. I am not going to preach at you, son. Not at a man on his last bed. I am going to ask you if you take this woman. Reverend. What? Do it now. Do it before the man in the yard finds his nerve. All right. He turned to Caroline. His eyes were kind. They had not always been kind. She had sat under his sermons for 4 years as an unmarried mother, and his eyes had not always been kind. They were kind now. Caroline. Yes, preacher. You know what you are doing. I know, preacher. You doing this of your own will. Yes. You know this man. I know him, preacher. I know him better than I wish I did. And I am marrying him anyway, and I am doing it with open eyes, and I am doing it for my son, and I am doing it because there are things between this man and me that are not finished, and I would like to finish them, his wife. All right, Caroline. All right, preacher. Stand by the bed. Take his hand. She did. The preacher opened his Bible. He did not read from it. He held it in his hand like a thing to swear on. Jonathan Edward Croft. Do you take Caroline Whitfield to be your lawful wedded wife from this day forward in sickness and in health, for the little time left to you on this earth, so help you God? I do. Caroline Whitfield. Do you take this man to be your lawful wedded husband from this day forward in sickness and in health, for the little time left to him on this earth, so help you God? There was a sound of a horse moving in the yard. Caroline. She did not turn her head. She held Jonathan's hand. I do. By the power vested in me by the territorial government and by Almighty God, I pronounce you husband and wife. May God have mercy on you both. Jonathan turned her hand in his. He pressed it to his mouth. He did not let go. Caroline. Jonathan. Wife. Say it again. Wife. Caroline. Wife. There was a boot on the porch. Caroline let go of his hand. She crossed to the table. Ambrose Hale had laid the papers out in 3 rows. He put the pen in Jonathan's hand. The doctor had already pulled the lap desk from the foot of the bed. Jonathan was signing when the front door opened without a knock. Edmund Croft walked into the cabin. He was a tall man. He had Jonathan's height and not his shoulders. He had a gray coat and pale eyes, and a mouth that was made for thin smiles, and he stopped 3 steps inside the door, and he took in the room, and his pale eyes went from the preacher to the doctor to the lawyer at the table, to the woman standing beside the table, and he stopped. Ambrose. Edmund. What is this? A signing. Of what? The estate, as you well know. And the woman. Mrs. Croft Edmund. Edmund's head turned. His pale eyes found Caroline. He smiled the thin smile. Mrs. Croft. Mr. Croft. Madam. Get out of my house. I beg your pardon. You heard me? Get out of my house. You came to the wrong door on the wrong day, sir. Go. He did not move. Cousin. Jonathan on the bed did not look up. He signed the 2nd page. Ambrose slid the 3rd in front of him. He signed the 3rd. Jonathan, cousin, you will want to stop signing. No, Jonathan. Whatever this woman has told you, whatever you believe about this child, you cannot in good conscience sign away a 400-year title to a bastard boy on the word of a frontier. Doc Prentice put his hand on his bag. Ambrose Hale stood up. Reverend Coombs set his Bible down on the table very carefully, very quietly, the way a man sets down a thing he may need to pick back up. Caroline did not move. Mr. Croft. Madam. You were about to use a word. Madam. Finish it. I did not. Yes, Mr. Croft, you did. You were going to call my son a bastard. You were going to call me a frontier woman, a shop girl, a something. Finish it. I would like every man in this room to hear you finish it. Madam, I meant no insult. You meant every insult. Caroline. Jonathan's voice from the bed thin but clear. Do not give him the floor. Cousin, Jonathan, listen to me. You are not well. You are not yourself. I have ridden from Philadelphia to tell you that the Crofts have stood 400 years, and you cannot in 1 week of weakness sign a trust that— Ambrose. Yes, Your Grace. Read out the date on every page. Your Grace. Read out the date. Ambrose lifted the top page. He read, "Signed this 11th day of June 1819, Philadelphia. Witnessed Ambrose Hale. Witnessed Samuel Whitbeck. Witnessed Elias Cornish." Again. "Signed this 11th day of June 1819. Edmund. Cousin. That is 3 months ago. Cousin. I signed those papers 3 months ago, Edmund, in Philadelphia, before any weakness, before this journey. The papers I am signing today are the territorial copies. The originals have been filed in Philadelphia since June. Ambrose had them filed the day after I signed. Did you not know that, Edmund? Did Ambrose not tell you?" The color left Edmund Croft's face. It left him all at once from the forehead down. "Ambrose." "Yes, Edmund." "You did not tell me." "No, Edmund, I did not. You let me ride 1,000 miles. I did, Edmund." "Why?" "Because your cousin told me not to tell you, Edmund. Because your cousin said if you were fool enough to ride west to stop a thing that was already done, you ought to arrive at a door with a closed mouth and a cold supper, and find out standing up." Those were his words. Jonathan on the bed almost smiled. Edmund Croft turned to the man on the bed. "You, Edmund, you set me up. Edmund, you were going to contest that boy's inheritance the day you heard I was dead. You have been planning it for a year. You had 3 physicians lined up before I left Philadelphia. Do not stand in this woman's house and pretend otherwise." "Jonathan, I am protecting my son Edmund. I did it while I still had the strength. I did it 3 months ago. I rode west to die near his mother, and you rode west to chase a thing already done. Go home. There is nothing for you here." Edmund Croft stood very still. His hand moved, not toward a weapon, toward his own coat. He took off his hat. He turned it in his hand. "Cousin. Edmund, you are dying." "Yes. Here. Here. And you have given everything to a child you have known one day." "I have known him his whole life, Edmund. I did not meet him until yesterday. Those are not the same thing." Edmund looked at Caroline. "Madam, Mr. Croft, I withdraw the word I was going to use. Thank you. I will not contest the signing. Thank you. I will ride east in the morning. Thank you." He put his hat back on. He turned. He stopped at the door. He looked back at the bed. "Cousin. Edmund. 400 years. I know Edmund. A shopgirl's boy. A good boy, Edmund. A fine boy. 400 years could do worse." Edmund Croft walked out. The door closed. The hoofbeats went. The yard was quiet. Caroline sat down on the kitchen bench. Ambrose Hale slid the last page under Jonathan's hand. Jonathan signed it. The doctor signed as witness. The preacher signed as witness. Ambrose signed as attorney. The lap desk was lifted away. "It is done." Jonathan let the pen fall out of his hand. "Caroline." "I am here." "Caroline. The boy. He is at the Henleys. I will send Martha's boy to fetch him. Now." "Now, Jonathan." She sent Ambrose himself. The attorney did not argue. He took his dusty hat off the table, and he went out to the yard, and he saddled his own horse, and he rode to the Henleys' place, with the chain swinging empty from his wrist. Martha brought the boy back in her wagon inside the hour. Tommy came through the door running. "Pa." "Son?" "Pa, the bad man is gone." "Yes, son." "Pa, Miss Martha said he rode off down the road." "He did, son." "Pa, I ain't scared no more." "Good, son." The boy climbed up on the bed. He put his small arms around his father's neck. He pressed his face into his father's shoulder. He did not cry. He had never cried, Caroline thought. Not once in the whole thing. Not once in any of it. Her son had a well inside him, and she did not know where it came from, and she thought it came from the man under him on the bed. Jonathan Croft lived 18 days. He lived long enough to see the papers filed in St. Louis. He lived long enough to see Ambrose Heir ride east with the territorial copies in the chained case. He lived long enough to sit on the porch of the cabin on 3 afternoons and watch his son chase chickens across the yard. And he lived long enough to teach the boy to whittle a piece of pine into something that was almost the shape of a horse. He died in the morning of the 19th day. He died with Caroline's hand in his, and Tommy asleep with his head on his father's hip, and he did not say anything at the end. He had said it all. He had said it in 4 days and 4 nights of low talking of old stories of apologies that Caroline no longer wanted and that he gave her anyway. He had said goodbye to his son on the porch on the 18th evening. He had kissed Caroline's mouth at midnight, and he had said, "Wife, wife." And then he had said nothing else, and the sun came up, and he was gone. They buried him under the cottonwood by the creek. The preacher spoke. The doctor stood at the head of the grave. Martha Henley held Tommy by the hand. Abel Henley dug the grave with his own shovel, and he would not let another man take a turn. Caroline stood at the foot, and she wore black, because it was what a widow wore, and she did not cry at the graveside, because she had cried every night for 18 nights, and she had nothing left that day. Tommy put the whittled horse in the grave before they closed it. He did it himself. He walked to the edge, and he knelt down, and he set the small wooden horse on the pine lid of the box, and he stood up and he said, "Pa, that is yours. I made it. You showed me how." Caroline did not speak. Ambrose Heir came back from Philadelphia in December with the final papers. He came into the cabin and he set the leather case on the table and he said, "Madam, your grace." "Do not call me that. Madam, by every law of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and of the Crown of Great Britain, you are the Dowager Duchess of Moreland. Your son is the 9th Duke. I cannot call you anything else." "Yes, you can, Ambrose. You can call me Caroline. We are going to see a great deal of each other for the next 14 years, until my son comes of age, and you are going to call me Caroline, or I am going to put you out on your ear the way I said I would." "Yes, Caroline. Sit down, eat bread, drink water. Tell me what my son owns." He sat. He told her. Her son owned a house in Philadelphia. Her son owned land in Pennsylvania, and in Virginia, and on the coast of England. Her son owned ships. Her son owned in cash a sum Caroline could not hold in her head when Ambrose said it out loud. Her son owned a 400-year title that no cousin in a gray coat could ever touch. Caroline listened. She did not cry. She did not smile. When Ambrose was done, she stood up and she crossed to the window and she looked out at the cottonwood by the creek and at the small cross of cut pine under it, and she said, "Ambrose." "Yes, Caroline." "My son will not leave this cabin until he is 12 years old." Caroline. "He will not go east. He will not see Philadelphia. He will not see a tutor in a black coat. He will run on this land, and he will feed the hens, and he will whittle pine into horses, and he will learn to read from me, and to figure from Abel Henley, and he will grow up American, and he will grow up his father's son, and when he is 12 years old, I will put him on a boat to see the house his father built, and not one day before. Do you hear me?" "Yes, Caroline." "Write it into the trust." "It is your right, Caroline." "Then write it." He wrote it. Tommy grew up on the cabin. He grew up tall. He had his father's shoulders by 14 and his father's hands by 16. And he had his mother's mouth, his whole life set hard when he was thinking soft, only when he was not. He learned to read in his mother's lap by the fire. He learned to ride on the mule. He buried a dog when he was 9, and he cried, and his mother held him, and he said, "Mama, I cried. I didn't cry when Pa went." And she said, "You were 4, baby. You cry when you can. Some of us have to wait longer than others." He went east when he was 12. He came back. He went east again when he was 16. He came back. He did not stay east. He was his father's heir, and he signed his father's papers, and when he was 21, he sold the house in Philadelphia, and he gave the money to a foundling hospital in his father's name, and he kept the land on the English coast because his father had been born there, and he kept nothing else. He married a girl from Missouri. Caroline lived to see it. She lived to see her grandson born. She lived to see her son stand on the porch of the cabin with his own son in his arms and say, "Mama, we are naming him Jonathan." She lived to be 68 years old, and she never remarried, and she never left the cabin, and when she died in her own bed in the middle of a summer afternoon, she was holding the hand of her son, and her last word was her husband's name. They buried her under the cottonwood by the creek beside the man she had married in 1 hour on a June afternoon in 1819, with the doctor and the preacher and the lawyer as witnesses, and the cousin riding away empty-handed down the road. The cross on her grave was cut from the same pine as his. Her son cut it himself. A Duke of Moreland had once thrown a woman out of a parlor in Philadelphia with $6 in the hem of her dress and his unborn son in her belly, and he had ridden 1,100 miles 4 years later to put his knee in a dusty Missouri street and beg for 1 hour of her life, and she had given him 18 days. And it was enough. It was enough because she said it was enough, and because her son lived, and because the cottonwood stood over them both, and because a 400-year title had come to rest in the hands of a boy who had learned to whittle pine on his father's last porch. A cowardly man had ridden west to die beside the woman he had failed, and the woman he had failed had forgiven him only as much as she wanted to forgive him, and not 1 inch more, and she had buried him with her own hands, and she had raised his son, and she had lived her life, and that was the whole of it. That was the whole of it, and it was enough.